Okay, I think we're live. Hello, everyone out there. Welcome to the 24 Hours of SEO first ever charity event. We're raising money for St. Jude's Children's Hospital. I always forget, is it St. Jude Children's Hospital or St. Jude's? Either way, that's what we're doing. Steve Brownlee's going to be joining me.
St. Jude, we're still offline.
There's like a 10-second delay.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yep, the stream just came up. Good to go. I'm joined by Steve Brownlee today, and our first guest right now, Adam Steele from Loganix. Nice to have you on.
Guys. Oh, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, I see we already got a few people out watching us. Great. If you can like and share the event with all your friends, followers, all that stuff. You know, the whole goal is to raise $15,000 in cash donations for St. Jude's. We're also selling merchandise. You can get apparel and coffee mugs and some backpack things, and all profits go into the hospital. So it should be great. We got a lot of great speakers lined up today. Anything you can do for donations helps. Normally you'd be paying quite a bit of money to see these guys live, so it should be fun.
Some of these guys. I don't know about me.
Yeah, not too expensive just yet.
Yeah.
I'm just sharing out the link a little bit here. Sorry.
Cool. Yeah, no worries. Steve, do you want to dump the links to everything in the chat quick? I have them in the description, but
yeah. Let me just grab them across.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know. I guess we can get started, Adam, if you want to talk about yourself for a few minutes, and then we can move into the main topic. And I guess every hour we're going to do about 40 minutes of just general discussion with the expert on their area of expertise, and then we'll leave about 20 minutes or so for Q&A. So get your questions ready if you have any, and the floor is yours.
Sure. Okay. So I run Loganix, which was actually formerly something called Creature Local back in the Wickedfire days, which is actually where I got my start, is on wickedfire.com with probably a bunch of the people that are going to, I know a bunch of the people that are going to be on this call, certainly some of the people that are listening, I bet. We had this little citation service, essentially. And I've actually told the founders of the Hoth, which is a SEO service. I've told them this a couple times. Alex and Dax and sort of Clayton, who's still involved. They were my model. Like, I looked to them when they were first sort of coming out, and I was looking at what they were doing and their branding and everything. I was like, damn. It was 2010. I had no idea what I was doing. I just worked for an affiliate marketing agency. I saw these affiliates making crazy cash. Like, guys were like 16, 17, 18, where we were sending them monthly 5-figure, 7-figure, or 5-figure, 6-figure checks for just sending traffic. And I thought I could do this. I was 21, 22 at the time. And so I quit that job and I was like, yeah, I'm going to go make this money. And I knew Wickedfire. I knew that existed because I had been introduced to it at the time. And I saw the guys from the Hoth, and I saw that they were like putting their face out. They were out there. They were doing videos. They had this like cool like logo and stuff. And so I thought, well, this agency thing. So I was about 6 months in at this time. This agency thing is not working out. Like, I could not get a client to save my life. And it was because thinking back to it now, is because I had no idea what I was talking about. Like, I would go see a potential client. I saw this restaurant once, and I had no idea what I was selling him, and I had no idea how to do what I was selling him. And so I'm sure they could see through that. They could see the poor confidence. So at 6 months, I had to figure out how I was going to continue to pay the bills, because I hadn't really thought this through. I had my visa. I had a little bit of debt at the time, and I thought I could figure it out quickly enough. So citations were born. I saw that they were doing links. I saw that another dude was doing citations, but he was just doing it via Skype, via some people he knew. And I thought, well, maybe I could do what that guy did, and I could brand it like the Hoth, and then I could create a service.
Cool.
And so that's kind of where it was born. And then it just sort of snowballed from there. Finally, somebody was crazy enough to hire me as an actual agency. But you know what? Loganix is actually just as bigger, in fact, than the actual agency Magistrate actually is, and that was not expected at all. It was just supposed to be some side income just to support the agency, but I guess there's some money in links. People, nobody wants to build links. That's
no, it's hard work.
It's horrible.
No one wants to do a lot of the SEO process. I'm glad you said the company name again, because we had a question in the chat from Nick Eubanks asking how it was pronounced. So
Loganix or Magistrate?
Loganix. Is that
I've always been calling it Loganix.
So yeah, I've been calling it Loganix.
I think more people call it it is. More people call it Loganix than people call it. In fact, I've had partners come on and work with me on different products, and they could never get the name right. They always called it like Colby Wren, for example. You guys remember Colby Wren? Have you ever met that guy? I think he was doing like...
I think I heard about him years ago or something.
Like spam and stuff like that back in the day. I don't know if he's still doing it with like Rhinestone, Pasha, and whatever. So yeah, he never got it right. But so yeah, it just we kind of just figured it out as we went along, and today we're all subcontractors, so we actually don't have any employees. We're all over the world, so we've got people in all kinds of places. Like we got a dude in Mexico, we got a dude in Africa, we got a lot of dudes and gals in the Philippines, Canada, United States. We've had people from Peru, and the list just goes on and on and on. Yeah. And yeah, we work together via Slack. And Slack and Trello for the most part, Google Hangouts occasionally, and that's cool. That's kind of how we exist.
So as you've spent these years growing everything, what would you say was like the hardest thing to scale? Was it like managing your time and keeping everybody in line, or making sure the quality stayed up to par as you kept growing, and maybe there were overhead costs that you didn't see coming that nailed you one year or something like that? Anything like that, or I guess?
I would have to say it's myself. Like just trying to delegate I'm not a natural manager, and so I've had to really learn what it is to manage and what it is to delegate, and that from day one, that's always been a challenge, because you always think, you're always tempted to believe that you can do it better than any than the other folks, and that may be true in some cases, but I've sort of given myself this rule of thumb: if somebody can do it at least 80-85% as well as I can, give it to them as fast as I can, and that's served me pretty well. And then just kind of back to the managing part, it's just getting other human beings to work together well, I guess. Without really sometimes I just dump people into things, and I expect them to be able to just pick it up and go without creating a process document, even though I know very well that a process and a guide and training must be there, or else it's going to be total chaos. I figure that anybody could just pick up this stuff and then just run with it, and that's not the case. And I don't know how many times I'm going to have to learn that lesson before I figure it out, but there has to be these step-by-steps, especially if you're working with a remote team like I am. So those have been big challenges.
Yeah, I know we're going through similar. We're putting together these masses of training guides, and Garrett's making training videos and stuff at the minute. And so I think we're, by the sounds of it, a year or two behind you on the developing all of these, but we're getting there.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I'm necessarily a year or two ahead of that. I feel like every single day is a new guide, is a new process, is me learning that lesson over again. And those guides, they change so quickly, as we all know here in SEO. You're doing one thing, and very quickly, but perhaps not quickly enough, you realize, oh, that's not actually working all that well. and then you have to learn another thing, and then you have to create another process, and then it's always a thing.
Yeah, it's always something.
Yeah.
I got a question from the chat room. BB Raven
Sure.
asks, would a management training type program for online entrepreneurs be something of value because it's so different to your traditional kind of MBA or managing in an office?
Yes, I think so. I think, yeah. I mean, I can't imagine something like that. I've just never seen anything like that. So I guess
No.
it's hard to imagine what would be in there, like how to use Skype. I mean, just like things like that. I guess all the tools that you might use to run a remote team. One of the things that I found more useful than anything is just, quite honestly, this book right here, A 4-Hour Work Week.
Okay.
It was like just a mindset and tool thing. And it actually, I read this after I had already started the business and was kind of already pretty, I might have been 4, maybe 5 years into it already. But when I read that, it was just like, it was constantly just nodding my head. The other one that I find is not at all sort of meant or written for this, but The Effective Executive. I found that to be by Peter Drucker, I want to say. I found that to be incredibly helpful for somebody who works from home like I do, somebody who works with a remote team. So there's nobody to like cheer me on or to make, hold me accountable or anything like that. You are that guy. That I found to be incredibly helpful. But yeah, to answer the question, absolutely, that would be really, really nice.
We're getting some love in the chat from Nick Eubanks is suggesting Dan Martell's Elite Entrepreneur Program, and a bit of love for the 4-Hour Work Week suggestion as well.
Dan Martell's a beast. He comes from the SaaS world, but he's got mad management chops. I've talked to him a couple times, and anything I've come across that he's put out has been good. So, and he's Canadian, so that's awesome too.
What was the name of that second book? The Effective Executive? The
Effective Executive. Yeah. Looks a little bit like, looks exactly like this right here. I've read this 4, 5, 6 times maybe, just because, again, this stuff doesn't come naturally at all to me. I have to just beat it until it finally, I just beat it into myself until it finally sticks. Yeah.
Get that on the reading list then.
Yeah, it's a classic. I don't know. I think it's a kind of a classic. It's like, it's almost, I sort of liken it to reading Napoleon Hill's, holy crap, what is it? Why can't I remember it? Napoleon Hill has this like epic book that has been around forever, and it's, for some reason, it's escaping me. But I liken it to whatever that book is. People will know what I'm talking about, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a quick shout out. We've had some donations since we started 20 minutes ago. Rasmus Sorensen, Mike Blumenthal, he'll be speaking up next after Adam here, and Jason Lauder. Thank you guys, much appreciated. Well on our way to the goal.
Yeah, and special thanks to ClearLink, who joined as a last-minute addition to the event sponsors. Obviously, Word Agents with Ben and ourselves with Reach Creator were sponsoring it originally. ClearLink joined yesterday. So check them out on clearlink.com. And I've got a little bit to talk about them later, but they've actually got a speaker joining Lexi Mills, which is, do you remember the slot time, Garrett, for Lexi? They've got Ellie.
They are at 7 a.m. Central Time on the 26th, so Friday, tomorrow.
Yeah, so tomorrow morning we've got Ellie Bishops joining Lexi Mills from clearlink.com as well. So they've got a speaker and they've contributed as one of the sponsors. So thank you very much for supporting the event.
Yeah, thank you. So what other questions can we ask Adam? Do you have anything, Steve? I guess we went through a lot of similar stuff scaling, and I think a lot of people get stuck kind of crossing that $1 million a year hurdle for an agency where it just, I don't know what it was like for us, how to put it into words, where you just get to this point and it's like nothing seems to be working the same way it did, and all of a sudden you have like 100 contractors and nothing's going right.
I think one of the things that I found is, if you have problems, I think I remember hearing Reed, the founder of LinkedIn, Reed, I want to say Reed Hoffman, or is that Netflix? I can't remember. Anyways, he said that if you have sort of these glaring problems before you scale, they're going to be massive by the time you scale.
That's very true.
And so if there are sort of any cracks in your processes or anything like that, you have to fix those either along as you scale or before you scale, because otherwise they'll cripple you. And for us, a lot of that had to do with just not a lot of training existing, not a lot of clarity in what people's roles were or expectations were, because I was kind of I often value speed over everything else. And so I would hire somebody. It wasn't until about a year ago that anybody on my team, and we're talking 15 at the time, 15, 16, 17 full-time people, even had a job description. Nobody had any, there were no like formal expectations, no come in at this time, leave at this time. Not that we have that now, but no, can you work at least 6 hours a day or 7 hours a day or 8 hours a day? Which days will you be in? There was nothing like that.
Yeah.
And so it was the wild west. And how can you expect to get stuff done like that? It's one of the things that I've struggled with so much is like, nobody cares as much as you. Nobody's ever going to care as much as you about your business. Nobody's going to wake up and want your biggest advocate, wants to build Adam's business, right? Nobody.
You're so right. It's yeah.
And they shouldn't. It's not their baby. Like you can't expect that. And yet somewhere like in my back of my subconscious, I wake up thinking that, and it frustrates me. Like, why aren't they motivated to do this? What am I doing wrong? Right? Because I always, with anything, when anything goes wrong, maybe it's just I've read this so many times. It's always, where they say like point one finger but point two fingers back. It always comes back to me. Is what did I do? What did I do wrong? What haven't I done? And that may be healthy. It may not entirely be healthy. Maybe perfectly healthy. I don't know. But too often, it's just something. It could just be I did the wrong hire. I just made the wrong hire. And oftentimes not oftentimes, but definitely that's happened a few times. Just made the wrong hire. Or
sometimes I guess the right hire, but in the wrong initial position, and it takes some time to get them settled in the right role for them.
Yeah, and sometimes I impose my own. I was going to say, can we swear on this? Can we curse?
Oh yeah. This
Sometimes
is part of the SEO on must.
Yes, all right. I impose my own shit on people. Like I push my own things on people and expect that this is what they want, without actually taking the time. And I think this is something that is probably common among remote owners or remote managers, is we don't take enough time to say, hey, what's up? How are you feeling? How are you doing today?
Right.
How's the family? What do you want?
Yeah, that whole like not being in an office even with anybody. It's just that whole personal disconnect is there's just like nothing there, and it's really hard to like build relationships that you normally would in an office setting versus sitting on Slack all day and just, why didn't you do this? Okay, get that done. Let's do that, and talk to you tomorrow or whatever.
And I guess we have to remember that we're not all built the same. Right? Talked about motivation and things like that. I mean, there's that, but there's also just like some of us, like I am strangely but perfectly happy sitting in my chair for 8 to 10 hours and not saying anything to anybody. I can do that, no problem. I've done that for a very long time. Some people are not built that way. Everybody has to be managed differently. You can't manage 20 people the exact same way. And so my approach has had to change for every single individual on my team. And so some people require just a little extra something, and others, they're totally cool doing their thing. In fact, they prefer leave them alone. They prefer you to leave them alone and let them do their thing because you are a distraction to them. So that's been a bit of a learning curve for me, because I'm cool alone in a lot of ways.
I think we are, as the founders, quite often, because we founded a remote business. But you need people who have those different personality types for some jobs. And like you say, it's interesting getting used to it. We got a quick question from Troy Fawkes. He says, Adam, what are the variations you went through in your sales processes, especially variations around effort invested per sale? He wants to know if you went from almost nothing to a huge amount of effort per sale.
It's like he's been watching me. Yeah, 100%. We went, I don't know if you ever heard that saying, a cobbler in shoes. So basically he takes care of all his client shoes. His client shoes are perfect, but his shoes are falling apart. Mm-hmm. And that to this day continues to be true. We've made a lot of improvements, but there was one day where somebody asked me, what are you doing for marketing? And I had no answer. Like, we weren't doing anything. We weren't even doing, like, ironically, we weren't even doing our own SEO. We weren't even doing our own link building. Yeah. And so eventually kind of woke up to that and kind of played with it a little bit. We started doing a little bit of ads, a little bit of retargeting ads, which we're still doing today. And it's just one of those things where I'm still trying to manage all of those things. So like my PPC guy, he checks in with me. The guy who sort of looks after our SEO effort, he checks in with me, and I just don't have a lot of time to sort of manage each one of those efforts. So we do some. I wouldn't say we do a lot relative to some of the other folks out there, but we do try. But definitely our cost per lead, or our effort per lead, is significantly larger than I think it ever has, both on the inbound side, so just getting inbound leads via whatever means, but also recently on the outbound side, building a team of salespeople and starting outbound outreach via just cold emailing and social and all that kind of stuff, and building recipes for how many touches. I've been listening to this amazing podcast called Predictable Revenue. I can't remember the host's name, but he teaches you essentially how to build and scale a sales team, like an outbound sales team. So I've been learning about all this kind of stuff and putting into play, and it's an incredible investment. I've never invested any kind of money in marketing, let alone this kind of money in marketing and sales and stuff like that. And it's a very steep learning curve too.
So kind of the opposite from the question. You've gone from very little effort to very much, instead of from very much to very little.
Absolutely. I feel like we have a decent offering, and we had a really great year last year, and people really were digging it. I think there's a hell of a lot of room to grow, but it just seemed like then was the time, or now was the time to actually kind of get serious about it. And yeah, it kind of worked out. I remember looking over some numbers not too long ago, where I think we're spending like $2,000 on ads. I want to say the return was like 23 grand in that particular period. I think it was like the third month we had done ads, or the fourth month we had done ads. And so it definitely works in these for link building, citation building, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, I think we're the same. Our effort has really gone up a lot because I think once you get bigger, you've got more time to focus on those parts of the business. You know, when you start, you're still doing some of the work, right? But then, 5 years in, you're doing, very little of the work, and most of it's training people, managing processes, and marketing. So you have more focus, don't you? I think.
how do you guys sort of, and I guess I'll throw a question back to you guys. How do you guys?
That's not how this works.
Guys, how do you, like, getting onto this call? I was quite apprehensive, and other interviews too, where I'm now more running the business than I am sort of. I mean, we could talk about SEO and link building all day because it still is a fairly big part of what I enjoy learning and researching and that kind of stuff. But I just lately, I've been feeling a little less in touch with these things, and like I look to guys like Nick Eubanks who they just blow my goddamn mind with SEO knowledge, and I just maybe I gotta ask him this question offline or maybe online later on today.
Yeah,
but sometimes I feel a bit disconnected, and so when I get on a call like this, I sometimes worry about they're going to ask me something about SEO, and I won't know. How do you reconcile that? How do you?
I don't know, man. I feel like exactly the same, and I think I was talking about it on the show a week or two ago. We were talking about some local SEO stuff that I used to be pretty heavily involved in, but after the last couple of years of focusing purely on our outreach services and having one local client, I couldn't even remember one of the main data aggregators' names. I am not in touch at all with what's going on, like with the Possum update that came out like a year ago now.
Sure.
I mean, I know what it is, but I don't know what I would do if it happened to somebody and what else is changing in local. I wouldn't even feel comfortable talking about it. Things have probably changed.
But I think it goes back to what you were saying at the beginning. Like when we started the business, I didn't know about any of that stuff to start with. That was Garrett's area of expertise, So while we didn't have a contractor who knew that stuff, Garrett knew that stuff. Now we have contractors who do that stuff and do all the registering and citations.
Yeah.
And Garrett doesn't need to memorize where he's going to go and build 50 citations for a plumber. What specialist listings there are for plumbers, because someone else knows it within the business. So I think you build a knowledge base as a business. You don't have to be able to answer every question. You just have to understand the right principles and what people need to be doing in general. And it's okay when a client asks you a question you don't know the answer to say, let me speak to our expert in that, because I guess they would hope that you're not just someone who makes up answers to all their questions and actually researches them properly anyway, I think.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to bullshit somebody.
I mean, like Nick says very similar in the chat. He says, build a small private community of practitioners and build relationships that keep you up to date as a byproduct of those relationships. And I think that's important as well. We're always talking to people who do totally different stuff in the industry and have some really good Slack and Skype groups that we're part of. And if I did get a question that no one in the company could answer, I could find someone to answer it in like 2 minutes or something. So especially good if it's a Skype chat, because I can get the answer before anyone notices that you haven't known the answer immediately. But obviously on a live call, I think it's fine to admit that you don't know the answer to something and you're going to do some research and get the right answer back to them. I think people respect that anyway.
Yeah,
that's my take.
I just find it's happening more and more often now, and it's a tough thing to deal with, because it's a lot of well, I shouldn't say a lot, but it's just local SEO has been my thing forever. It's just been what I was good at and knew about and researched and wrote about and blah blah blah. And recently, like you said, like the Possum update, like I roughly understand what it was about. I didn't have any, but I could not tell you a lot about it. Whereas go back, 2-3 years ago, I could explain exactly what, say, Penguin. Mind you, Penguin was just way bigger than anything we'd seen, or Panda was way bigger than anything we'd seen. But I could break it down. I could tell you about client cases. I could tell you how to get back from it. But now it's strange. It's a strange new reality, I suppose.
I think the updates come so thick and fast. I mean, we were joking on the show that if you believed Search Engine Roundtable and all the different forums, there's an update every Friday, and it's always destroying the world, and it's always chaos. But most people aren't affected, and I think all the updates blend into just one continuing wave now, instead of, like when Panda came, that was like a real shot across the bow, and loads of huge sites went into panic. But I think now it's just continuous. So it would be hard to properly, if there's an update one Friday and the next Friday there's more noise, and then the next Friday there's more noise, it's so much harder to study with the number of clients that any of us have. With 100 clients before, there's a one big update, you knew what date it was on, and then nothing happened for 4 months. It was quite easy to look across your data and see what was going on. When there's a lot of movement across a lot of dates and you only have a small amount of data to look at, it's much harder for you to do in isolation now, I think, which is why there's less of us spending hours trying to figure it out, because it's just 20 times harder when there's so much more going on and they're bringing the updates more regularly.
Yeah. I actually have another question.
And Nick points out that the propaganda echo chamber needs propaganda. An excellent point, I think.
Well, Nick's good about that. See, Nick's one of those guys who tests. He tests before he believes, I think. Like there are a few people out there that they really test, and they make those tests available to everybody else, which is wonderful. He certainly isn't one of those guys who falls prey to that echo chamber. I had another question for you guys that is, I guess, a little bit more on topic. We don't. I don't get this opportunity. I don't take this opportunity to talk to, we'll call it, like minds all that often. So it's a real privilege for me. I was just thinking about like my best hire, like the person perhaps, or the in my case it was the person who changed everything, who basically allowed me to scale. And it was I made two key hires that allowed me to scale. I hired a bookkeeper, and looking back at it, I would say that should have been probably my first hire, because it crippled. Like if your money is crippled, you are crippled. You can't scale if your money isn't in check. And I am terrible at cash flow. I'm terrible with money. Yeah. And it's not so much, I guess it's terrible with money, but it's also just, if you think you're really bad, you won't spend. Like if you think you're always on the brink, you won't spend. And if you don't spend, right, a lot of times you can't grow, right? Mm-hmm. So that
and
was,
we've all had that conversation with clients, right? I mean,
yeah,
you go and see them and they're like, we're really struggling, so we're going to cut the advertising budget, and everyone has to use a pencil that they
it's like, well, I mean, you're not reaching anybody, so you're going to spend less money to reach even less than zero. And well,
it's I mean, my key hire was Garrett. I actually picked him up straight from university. So
oh wow!
Now we run the business together. So yeah, he can tell you how he can answer that question about all the important things he's done to change my business.
Yeah. Why? What? We hire a lot of people, or we will hire a lot of people, and we will, eventually let go of a lot of people. What do you think? What do you think made this hiring him different? Or I guess I wish there was another hire that I made. Her name is Jen.
I mean, the thing I think about with hiring is I'm a big believer in the saying from the Untouchables. If you don't want a rotten apple, pick one from the tree. And it was funny, actually, I was chatting to someone on Skype about this earlier. People who have amazing CVs in this industry, there's a lot of them that are extremely incapable when you actually meet them and get to talk to them. And so hiring from other agencies, hiring from other shops, getting someone who's got experience in link building already is extremely ineffective for us. I'm a real believer you want to pick someone up who's completely fresh and has the raw talent, knowledge, and desire, but hasn't been ruined by someone else's terrible processes, thinking, knowledge. So that's something we've continued since Garrett joined the business. basically no one we work with has had previous experience when we started training. And there's probably, we've got so many now, I'm sure there's one or two somewhere on their CV did something, but for the most part, we're bringing people in from PR and writing and content strategy rather than anything to do with SEO, or just fresh completely straight from college, which is much more effective for us.
Yeah, I don't think you could have gotten much fresher than me. I didn't even go to school. I went to school to be an engineer. I didn't know anything. Well, I mean, I knew stuff, but like I didn't know anything about building a business or
I don't know.
business
You
school.
seem to have known more than me since we got going.
Natural.
I guess it helped growing up, with my grandpa and stuff. Learned some that kind of stuff. But
yeah, I mean, your family's run a business forever.
Yeah, so I guess that does help having some of that exposure as a kid and as I got older that a lot of people probably don't get. So I can kind of look at things.
It's a mentality, I think.
We've got a question from David. What do you think is most important in this industry, in particular, collaboration or competition? I mean, I'm going to answer quickly and just say collaboration. We're really good friends with loads of competing link building agencies. We happily have a coffee with them at conferences and we chat all the time. I think collaboration is super important, and there's plenty of, there's billions of dollars in business. Until you've got like $1 billion of it, there's still plenty for you to go after without worrying about the competition. But if you all get better together, it's good for the industry.
Yeah, I mean, did you guys ever watch The Sopranos?
I didn't.
Basically, like, they made a lot of money off garbage companies, and at some point in the series, the different families are competing or whatever, the little factions within a family, and I don't know if one of them was in the hospital, and Tony's like, finally, they're making so much money, they're making millions of dollars a year off this shit, and they're arguing it over, and Tony's finally like, there's enough garbage for everybody, there's no reason we all can't just make a few $1 million each and get on with life. And I think it's
I think one of the big turning points for my business very early on was I'll never forget it. I felt so included, and before then I felt kind of, I guess, I was part of the Wicked Fire crew, I guess you could say, and so to be included in more mainstream, it was, I felt like I don't know, I was writing for mainstream on my blog, but nobody was listening. And so it wasn't until a guy named Matthew Hunt, a Canadian back east, he runs an agency called Powered by Search with another guy, Deb Basu, and another guy named Warren. I can't remember his last name. Incredible guy. He's so intelligent. But he had a Skype group, a little Skype mastermind kind of thing for local SEO. And it had, oh man, I was so excited when I got there. It had Deb in it. It had Darren Shaw in it, and like total. I mean, he wasn't quite the celebrity he is now, but still, like, I looked to these guys and I just wanted their attention. Quite honestly, I just wanted to sort of be a little bit more mainstream, and it had Mike Blumenthal, Mary Bowling, like just incredible individuals that I'd read so much about, and it was there that I think not only did I have more confidence in myself as an SEO, but also just I felt like I had a little bit of a team, and I got referrals from there, and I had people I could ask questions, and it was just, yeah, that ability. So I would say collaborate in a big way. And there's been many other cases like that or situations like that since that I could speak about. Working with Brian Dean was another thing early on, like way before Brian Dean was Brian Dean, before there wasn't even a briandean.com or backlinko.com rather. So I would say definitely collaboration is massive. I think competition is important too. There was a situation where one of my competitors, White Spark, I mean, to be quite honest with you, came out with service, or not a new service. I think they're new pricing for a new service. And I looked at it and I was just like, damn, like $16 a citation? What the fuck? Like, how is that even possible? How are people going to pay that? And if for some reason it was just like, it almost frustrated me. And somebody caught me and they're like, what are you talking about? One of the biggest guys in the industry just said you can charge $16 a citation. I'm just making a hypothetical number. I can't remember exactly what it was. And you were just given a gift. Now you can potentially charge more per citation. This is awesome. And I was like, oh dang. So I think in a lot of ways, competition is just as important because it creates new opportunities for you. It validates ideas that you hadn't validated or thought of or considered to be possible. So
yeah, it's definitely true. And people will be targeting different sectors from you. And if you're trying to diversify and move into new sectors, you can learn from their marketing. They can learn from yours, obviously, too, which isn't as good. But and the other thing I'll say to people is not to be afraid to reach out to people. Like when I was starting out in the industry, I can't even remember the number of people I emailed that were, famous in the industry or whatever, because I had some question or whatever. And so many replied, and so many were super helpful. So many I still speak to now. Obviously, it's easier to get people to reply now because more people know who I am slightly. I'm still not in the illustrious tier as many of the speakers today, but more people know who I am, so I do get more replies now if I send someone a random email asking them something. But even at the beginning, people in this industry are super helpful for the most part, the legitimate people anyway, and you will get replies if you're looking for help and you're looking to learn and you're looking to build something cool. People will help you out, so don't be afraid to talk to people because they all started where you were, and most people are happy to give back and help people out, do some mentoring. I mean, some people are even looking for people to be a mentor to.
100%. I absolutely agree. I can remember sending your next guest, Mike, an email and being so nervous about sending it, just because I was just like, well, what if he doesn't reply? And I was just, now I would have asked myself, well, what's the worst thing that could happen?
Right.
He could not reply. And what might that mean? Oh, he must hate me. Well, no, he could just be busy, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
Like, come on. But I just didn't think that way. So, I mean, kudos to you. Like, I was a total scaredy cat. I would not. It just seemed like such a hurdle, or it just seemed so impossible to reach out when I was starting. Maybe it was probably more pride than anything, just silly pride, and I could have used a lot. I mean, I think this is true for any business owner. Other business owners want to help. Other people want to help, but you have to ask, and you can't be afraid to ask. Nobody's going to tear you down. Nobody's going to make you feel like crap. They've never experienced that. Not ever.
No, I don't suppose we have either, really. Everyone's been super nice. And I think, the reason I was never afraid is because I used to work in banking. So you work at a place where you all sell an identical product to identical people. And you're still prepared to sit down, have a beer and chat over ideas with your competitors, and you make friends outside your bank. And if in that environment you can be friends with everyone, it just seemed mad to me that it wouldn't be the same in an industry where 90% of us only overlap slightly in what we sell in any group that forms. So there's no reason for people not to want to help each other, I think.
There's something that I read about recently called, it's not called anything in particular, but basically it's conditioning yourself to rejection. And I think Tim Ferriss talks about it a little bit. And perhaps it was in the banking world where you're trying to sell products and things like that, and people are going to say no. Perhaps it was your experience with potential rejection that you're just like, you weren't afraid.
Yeah, and if any of you want to hear more about this exact topic, actually, 3 to 4 a.m., so 9 a.m. London time, 3 to 4 a.m. CST, Garrett and I are actually going to be talking about account management outside the SEO industry, and we're going to be contrasting that with how most SEO design and tech agencies do it, and explain why maybe many of them do it poorly compared with banking and advertising. So we're going to be going through some interesting experiences there and just some things that we've seen around that. So if you want to go into a lot of depth on this, we'll actually be covering it. I've lost the live stream. I'm back. So yeah, we'll be covering that in a bit more detail. But yeah, I think you get rejected endlessly if you do a real hardcore sales job like that. So I'm pretty conditioned to rejection. Doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect me at all.
I never had those experiences early on. If I think about the jobs I had, like a paper route, nobody's saying no, don't give me my damn paper, and nobody's awake at that time, so there's nothing like that. As a server or a bartender or a dishwasher, you're not none of that. You're not on the line for anything. So yeah, maybe if I think back, I guess maybe having a sales job is not a bad idea. Like right out of college or right before starting a business or something like that.
You would learn a lot really quick.
I'd strongly recommend it. I mean, when I left college, I was super nervous, super geeky, barely spoke to anyone. Could count number of girlfriends I'd had by that point on one hand. Probably I don't really remember. Pretty bad results all around. Got my first job was just a little building society, which I think is the same as like a small cooperative bank or something like that over in America. And one of the first jobs I had was to bully people into signing up. I mean, encourage people to sign up for the credit card that they were partnered with. And just doing that, I realized, wow, I can just walk up to random people and make them do things. And it just really helped break that.
That's funny.
It was a mold of a lifetime of being nervous and shy, and 2 months of a hard sales job just changed how I felt. And I still am quite introverted, and I don't like big parties and stuff. But if there's someone I want to speak to, I'm not afraid to go up and say hi now. Whereas 19-year-old Steve would have left the event. So sales jobs are good for you because it's a skill. I mean, everyone's in sales. Like if you're a professional, like you're a lawyer, you're paid by your billings, how many clients you bring into the firm. You become partner if you bill enough. Yeah,
it's all about how much money you're bringing in.
Yeah, so there's no one who can escape it. If you run a SaaS company, sure, you might get away with doing most of your sales using growth hacking and other stuff, but there's still going to be, Carter on Builder Society is always talking about with the SaaS that he built, Serpru, customer service and interacting with the customers was a huge part of their early growth because it was so unique to the SEO industry and it was something that freaked people out. So I think having that ability to interact and the desire to do it is super useful. So, and you tend to get paid more doing a sales job than if you start out of college and take just some random office job as well. So you get to learn some really powerful skills and you get paid more than, I got paid more than all my friends that were trainee accountants and stuff like that because I went to business school. Everyone wanted to be an accountant. I didn't. So I just went into sales to do something different. And I got paid more than everyone while they were training accountants and stuff anyway. So if you are planning to start your own business, learning the skills whilst getting paid more than quitting and starting your business is a pretty good idea, I think.
Yeah, maybe going to work as like an SDR, I think it was sales development representative or whatever it is, and just hitting the phone, doing some cold outreach because you're going to get rejected so much. And if you're motivated, that can really build your confidence. So a job like that, I can imagine serving me very well because even today, like that is not something. We chose to do cold email outreach because I don't want to get on the phone, man. Like I don't want to be turned down like people turn me, like I turn people down when they cold outreach me. Like that would be hard. That would be hard as hell. So that's probably why we chose the email route or the social media outreach route because the alternative is scary as hell.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think in our business it works as well because of the people you're outreaching to aren't used to receiving phone calls like that. So you've got an extra kind of bridge to get over when you start the call. In some industries, like medical practices, they expect to get the medical reps phoning them all the time and trying to come out. So those calls aren't so weird. Like if you're an SEO agency and someone actually rings you to try and sell links, it's probably a bit weird. I'm not sure they'd be. I'm not sure they'd be like what.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. I just had one question I wrote down before we started.
Sure.
It was just around, because it's something we found has been really important to us, and I just wondered if there were any parallels your end, that as we've grown, we've found the importance of building our own tools and software in-house to become more and more and more important as we've gone. Is that something that you guys have invested a lot of time and money in, or are you still using a lot of off-the-shelf stuff?
We've tried. We've tried here and there. And we've mostly flopped. Like we build something that we wouldn't use for very long, or we quickly outgrew, or we thought was really great, but then we were like, what are we doing? There's something perfectly good that's off the shelf. So I'd say we've made some attempts, but we've mostly kind of crashed and burned as far as that goes. And I think I've got one guy named Josh who works for me, he was one of the original builders of DFB. Do you remember Drip Feed Blasts? Maybe not. Anyways, it was kind of one of the first sort of, I guess it built like social links or forum links back in the day. Like we're talking like 2010, 11, Wicked Fire type stuff. And they did quite well, if memory serves. But he built this great SaaS, and built into, I believe it was definitely $1 million business. But him and I, we've tried to build stuff, and I don't know. I think it's just I don't have a vision for a tool, and I don't have the capacity or the skills to see it through. So I think I agree. There are at least a half dozen tool ideas that I have, but I would have to build them better than what already exists. And I think that is a very tall order. So we use a lot of tools, like talking thousands of dollars every month we pay out for tools, thousands and thousands. And yes, they're not perfect. So we adjust our processes and we do our best. But again, imagining and god damn, is it expensive to build software. Holy smokes. My first couple shots at building it, oh my god, it was expensive. And then to end up with potentially, I bow down to anybody who builds good software. It is an incredible feat, in my opinion. Like Darren Shaw, an incredible feat, in my opinion. So yeah, I guess that's my take on that.
Cool. Well,
yeah, it's tough.
It is tough. I mean, I'm not going to say the software that we've built is amazing, but it's definitely been pretty essential to building the business the way we've built it, and
How so?
to be profitable. There wasn't anything off the shelf that saved our team. Every time I add a feature, it saves someone 1% of their time, and when you've got a lot of people, that adds up to a lot of money over the year. And if you make 10 or 15 1% upgrades, you've turned some unprofitable clients that you were thinking, oh, I don't know if we can continue servicing this client, feel bad because they joined us right at the beginning, and then you look at it a year later and you're like, oh, we actually made 4% on this client now, even at that price, so we can just about keep them. It turns unprofitable deals into profitable deals, and generally just improves your efficiency. And we're replacing the latest one I'm working with some developers on, is replacing BuzzStream for outreach. Too many problems with it versus our workflow. So getting rid of that completely and building our own tool that's definitely going to be better, because it's not going to be better for everyone, but it's going to be better for us because it's not going to have the problems for us that BuzzStream has. and we always try and put in requests for fixes and changes first. Like while we haven't got time to build it right away, we'll send in like 400 requests over a couple of years until we give up on them. And if it happens to happen during that time, great. But if it doesn't, then we look to replace it. And I think that'll be I think we'll save around 60 hours a week of our workers' time when we replace BuzzStream in a couple of months. So I think it's really important. And I mean, I am lucky because I can code myself. I'm not the best, but when I am outsourcing to, say, some developers overseas, quite often they say no to loads of features. They don't know how to do something. I can tell them how to do it, and then they can just look it up in, even if they're using a framework I don't use, like the current one, they're using Laravel. I don't develop in Laravel at all. But I can tell them, look, in Django, this is how you would do it, and give them the right words to look up, and they can then, oh yeah, we can do it that way too in Laravel, no surprise, and off they go and do it. So it would be a lot more difficult. Nick Eubanks is recommending Pitchbox, which we have tried as well. It is actually better than BuzzStream, I think. So if you're kind of on the fence between the two, Nick's right there. Definitely start with Pitchbox. We just got kind of entrenched with BuzzStream, so leaving them and using something else, we were like, right, we're gonna do something completely different. Joe Sinkwitz loves Laravel, so shout out to Laravel. I've always coded it in like Python, so it was natural for me to use Django, not Laravel, when I develop things. But
I don't mean to cut you guys off, but it's 10 o'clock here. Time to move on to the next speaker. Thank you very much for joining us, Adam. Much appreciated.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Absolute pleasure. I hope I provided a little bit of value this time.
Yeah, it was good. Everyone check them out at Loganix.net. As always, the recordings will be available after the whole show is over, so if you missed part of this hour segment, I don't know exactly when I'll get a chance to cut it all up and do all that fun stuff after I sleep for a couple days, but it'll get done, and if you're on the email list, you'll get an email when it's all ready to go. And yeah.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
So, thank you. Have a good one, man.
Thank you very much. If you enjoyed the presentation,